Eva.
And you still don't own anything with sleeves.
Except for a DePaul sweatshirt. Ironically, we were watching DePaul that morning at your place, weren't we? You were.
What is happening, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock. And I've been bringing up that I don't know how lighting works. I'm trying to figure it out. I've got new lighting for my office. I've got a new camera that I haven't hooked up quite yet, but it's going to be soon. So hopefully, after I don't know how many years of doing this, I have figured out a way to be more visible to the people who watch me on shows. So hopefully, you guys can notice a difference. If not, go fuck yourselves. MLB Live Before Lock tonight. Do us favors you're watching. Like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are sponsored today by Underdog. So if you guys haven't checked out Underdog, NBA best ball drafts, they are up and live in the lobby. And if you're going to sign up, use our promo code. Take advantage of the deposit bonus offer. And Eric, only, like we've been saying, only a couple days left here of MLB regular season. What do you make of, because I find this to be really interesting, what do you make of this Braves and Mets situation?
Doubleheader Monday. It's going to be epic. It's going to be must watch. Here's what I was wondering. Can we get DraftKings to release a slate where both games are included? Do you know how fun that would be?
So. I don't think it would work.
It would be incredible.
So the other thing too is it's possible they only end up playing one game on Monday though.
Well, I mean, it depends on how important it is coming off of the weekend, because they're not going to play baseball today. They're not going to play baseball tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday doubleheader to round it out. It probably matters about implications of it. But that's what I'm saying is, like, if both games end up mattering, that'd be awesome. If it's one game that you're building for the script where a team blows them out and you're not playing the other starting pitcher or potential starting pitcher for the next game. There's so many little nuances that would make it so much fun, Greg. Also, it's weird because you are definitely way better lit than you've ever been before. You look like...
I got new lights here. I will say one thing this has added, it is hot as hell here now that I've got all these extra lights on me. So that's a new thing that I have to figure out on shows, is that now it is just constantly super hot because I've got extra lighting on me. But whatever, trying to figure out the best practices here. Something else also that could come into play. It looks like the weather's going to be okay for Atlanta to be able to play on Friday. If they don't, the Braves are going to have to play really high leverage games where they play potentially a doubleheader on Sunday, a doubleheader on Monday. And if everything was to check out for them, they would then have to start the playoffs on Tuesday.
Not great, Bob. Not great.
Because you got the hurricane there. So the reason today's game and tomorrow's games are both canceled is you got the hurricane. It looks like Friday, most likely scenarios, I think they'll be good to play. But if the rain ends up lingering or the field is like too soaked to play, then yeah, the Braves are going to be in a situation where they are going to have to play 4 games in 2 days just to be able to make it potentially into the playoffs.
Also not great, Bob. Yeah. I love chat so much. Eric loves freak offs. Yeah, no, I love freaking off to a little bit of weird DFS-ness on a Monday. I think that would be awesome. But also, nothing like asking for likes and telling people to go fuck yourself. Yeah, no, that's just how Greg Ehrenberg does things. So if you're not used to it by now, well, I really don't know what to tell you, because he tells me to do that literally every day, and then I oblige.
Yeah, well, some minor details a little bit different there about what is asked to being fucked and whatnot. But that aside, the point I was making at the top was that I've really spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to deal with this lighting situation. And so if it was all for nothing, then what a waste of my time this afternoon. I decided to clean my office, move some stuff around. I'm going to have to move the desk later as well to try to figure out where to set up the new camera. But whatever, we got a baseball slate to talk about today. And just quick thoughts with that Braves and Mets game being postponed. Obviously, Chris Sale was supposed to be pitching for the Braves today. So how does that game getting taken off the slate impact what your lineups are going to look like?
Well, I mean, it impacts in a big way, because anytime Chris Sale's on a slate, you can't fade him playing more than one lineup. You just can't do it. He's been too good. Is he going to win NL Cy Young going away this year? He's going to win NL Cy Young going away this year.
Probably unanimously. It should be unanimously.
It should be unanimous, but there's always that one F-tard that just tries to go screw it around, because that's how MLB writers work. They're the stone cold worst. But yeah, with that game off, I mean, we're going to have some other weather. The Cubs, Phillies, they're not on this slate, so that's very fortunate. We've got some interesting stuff with Washington, but it looks okay. In Baltimore, New York, it hasn't been as good of hitting weather. Didn't affect Aaron Judge yesterday, but Aaron Judge hits balls very, very hard. Against Zac Eflin, I shouldn't think that would be too much of a concern either. It's a 9-game slate. There's some decent enough hitting environments across the industry, but yeah, don't forget, we're starting to see things start to tone down a little bit here. We have another Coors Field spot that sure is going to make us bang our heads against a wall. Hard to get away from it, but yeah, let's dive into it.
All right, so let's go ahead and start at the high end of pitching, which no longer is going to be featuring the aforementioned Chris Sale. So instead, here are 4 pay-up options on the slate. Zac Gallen is your chalk at 9K. He's 33% owned. Also, one other thing. If Chris Sale doesn't win Cy Young unanimously, I wouldn't be surprised if some voters do end up voting for Paul Skeens. He's got a sub-2 ERA. He's, I think, pretty decent chance that some people might overlook the innings and just say, hey, sub-2 ERA, going to give him Cy Young vote. That aside, Zac Gallen, 33% owned. He is your chalk amongst the pay-up options at 9K, pitching against the San Francisco Giants in a high-leverage game for the Diamondbacks. Marcus Stroman, he is unowned. Why the hell Marcus Stroman is $9,100 on any slate that's significant size when his opponent is the Orioles makes no sense. So nobody's playing him at 3% owned. Totally understand that. Dylan Cease, tough match for him against the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is 16% owned. And then Jack Flaherty, also reasonably tough matchup against the San Diego Padres. He is 33% owned. So, Eric, same sort of deal as yesterday. The guy who's the most popular makes all the sense in the world to me. It didn't work out for Bailey Ober and your Twins yesterday because your Twins were just being the Twins. I swear, the Twins and the Mets, no offense to you, Eric, it is just franchise of absolute losers who just cannot win high leverage games for whatever reason. I don't know why. You change the players. You could change the logos. You could change it for whatever reason. Baseball teams in those particular stadiums have just not been able to win high leverage games for forever now. So these are pay up options. Zac Gallen, just like Bailey Ober, I totally understand why he is the most popular pitcher. But Eric, are you going to be gravitating towards Zac Gallen like the field is?
First off, fuck you. And secondly, yeah, I'm going to be. I don't see how you get away from it. San Francisco brought it up routinely yesterday. Did it work out with Brendan Pfaadt in a big way? No, it did not. But we're looking at Mike Yastrzemski, Heliot Ramos, both of those guys north of 26% strikeout rates. Gerard Encarnacion back in this lineup, 29% strikeout rate. Grant McCray continuing to be in this lineup. McCray, 39.5% K rate. I mean, we have a lot of strikeouts here. Nobody in the entire lineup, sub 22.5% K rate. Not a single freaking batter. That's not very good. And Arizona had everything to play for. Brandon Pfaadt, 20. Yeah, I mean, it was just a weird outing for him yesterday. And so as I work through it here for tonight, I just don't see any issue whatsoever in firing up Zac Gallen. He's been one of my guys. It's a 3.8 implied total in our projections. Yeah, I'm going to play him.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I'm getting to Zac Gallen the most of the pay-up options, and it's for multiple reasons. It's not just his individual matchup against the Giants, but it's also, like, who are we comparing him to here, where you've got Marcus Stroman, just touched on him, like why he's $9,100. I have no interest at all at paying $9,100 for him against the Orioles. And then Cease and Flaherty just have infinitely more difficult matchups, and they're more expensive. And then on top of it, Flaherty isn't that much less popular than Zac Gallen. It's 33 versus 23% ownership. I think the gap should be way wider in terms of what the field is doing. So Zac Gallen, he's somebody I'm going to be playing a ton of. And then as far as the other two guys in Jack Flaherty and Dylan Cease, I have some exposure to them, but I'm pretty far underweight each of them relative to what their projected ownership is.
As am I. I don't know how we would like Dylan Cease taking on the Dodgers. I don't know how we'd like Jack Flaherty taking on the Padres. I mean, I feel like Jack Flaherty is just crazily overowned, but then our projections kind of like him. I don't know what to make of it. What do you think of Jack Flaherty here? Because I just don't see any way that I'm going to get remotely close to the field.
I've got some lineups with him, but it is currently, let's see, my last
2 of 20 for me.
I have, yeah, I've got half as much as what the field has. So like there's certain lineups, if you're playing a really cheap stack where like, sure, it just makes sense Gallen and Flaherty to be the pitchers, but I'm just not going to be anywhere near that mid 20% ownership mark on him.
Yeah, no chance. And I like Jack Flaherty as a pitcher. This has everything to do with, as you look at the Padres matchup, it's a stone cold disaster for strikeouts. Could he have a good outing? Sure. It'd be not surprising in any way, shape, or form, but I mean, kind of the exact opposite of what we just talked with the Giants. 22.5% K rate being the low strikeout guy, Lamont Wade Jr. for the Giants. The high strikeout guy is Fernando Tatis at 21.9% on the season. And Jack Flaherty, he's really good, 30% K rate. But I mean, what's the workload that we're expecting for him here, too? We haven't seen him reach the 100 pitch mark since August 9th. It's been a hot second, if you will. I think they've kind of been middling with him a little bit. He's a fly ball pitcher here at this stage of his career. I think it's a really good hitting ballpark. I'm not probably going to be stacking up anybody against Jack Flaherty. Might have a one-off or two, but there's no doubt that I think Jack Flaherty is going over-owned in this spot.
Yeah, so Jack Flaherty, we're pretty much all on the same page with all of the pitchers here. So we could move on from the top end pitchers. One thing that, let me see if we've gotten the question yet in Discord. If we didn't, we're going to be getting it soon about our favorite cash game options, which, all right, so that has not come in yet. Question's going to come in a second here. Zac Gallen is one of our cash game pitchers. Would you like to be pairing him with Jack Flaherty in cash games on DraftKings? Or are you looking at one of the 8K pitchers or maybe even one of the punt guys? Because we do have Kevin Gausman in the 8K range who's pulling 24% ownership. So Gallen, certainly one of our cash game pitchers. I think you got three options to pair him with, either Flaherty, Kevin Gausman, or Jose Suarez. Which direction do you like to go for your cash game combo?
Jose Suarez.
Good matchup against the Chicago White Sox. Gausman's a little tempting to me just because of the state of what the Red Sox lineup is, kind of like what we had discussed yesterday. But because we also have that same scenario with the Coors Field game and us probably want to get exposure there, especially for some of those hitters in cash, I'm going to agree with you. I think that Zac Gallen, Jose Suarez, that should be the cash game combination. But let's get to talking about these 8K pitchers for GPPs, where Gausman's 24% owned. Cody Bradford is 13% owned. Brady Basso, he's 11% owned, which, funny enough, Brady Basso not all that long ago was the flat min and was on a couple of slates, not even that much different than 11% owned. But now it's $7,500. He's 11% owned. Eric, what do you make of the 8K range? Are you going with the field and Kevin Gausman, or is there somebody else who stands out to you?
Kevin Gausman's okay. I mean, there's only three guys to be pulling from: Cody Bradford, Gausman, and Eflin. I think it pretty clearly goes Gausman, Bradford, Eflin, but so does the ownership. I think Cody Bradford's somebody that we've found some flaws with, but then also he has shown some crazy upside at very, very low ownership on a couple of slates. Most specifically, last time out, that was just absolutely insane. But he does carry a 182 expected ISO against righties. He has a 203 expected ISO against lefties. So he's giving up power to both sides of the plate. I think overall you can still take some shots on Cody Bradford, but I'm playing 20 lineups. He's not going to show up in like double digits for me. I have him in one. So it's going to be Kevin Gausman in a pretty prominent way in 25% of my lineups. So I'm holding hands with the field on him, playing a little bit more than the field on Zac Gallen. I think amongst the chalky guys, I'm happy to be doing that. But Jose Suarez is the guy I've got a pretty strong stance on, nearly 2x the field. So I'm probably okay just leaving it at one share Bradford. Can't really make a statement for Zach Eflin, though. It's a terrible matchup against the Yankees. Sure, the weather's decent, but outside of that, what are we really trying to accomplish here other than, maybe run into a spot where you avoid some damage? It's probably going to go poorly for him here. 4.6 implied run total. I don't love the strikeout stuff. I'm probably okay just going to Gausman and nothing else in this range.
Yeah, and I feel the exact same way. Like, I have some trepidation about Gausman because it's been just an overall down year for him. It looks like the elbow injury and just everything else a little bit past prime for Kevin Gausman. The strikeouts haven't been there for him in the same way in the past. But look at who we're comparing him to. We're comparing him to Cody Bradford. We're comparing him to Zach Eflin, like you had mentioned. We're comparing him to, other pitchers like Brady Basso in the 7K range. So, like, I don't really like, and Brady Basso somehow is in an island in terms of pricing. So he's $7,500. There's no other pitchers in that 7K range. So I guess people just kind of land on him by default. But I don't like Eflin. I don't like Bradford. I don't like Basso. So just it's by default. Kevin Gausman's the guy.
Yep, he's by default him. Kevin Gausman's splitter is not the pitch that it once was, but it's still good enough on this slate. It's still good enough amongst this range that, like, you want to make a stand for somebody. I don't see how you make it for anybody other than Gausman here, 8K and above. Like, it's basically Gausman. I get Flaherty's really, really good at pitching. I get it. I totally understand. I get Dylan Cease is very, very good at pitching, but I mean, it's Zac Gallen. It's Kevin Gausman. I'm okay eating the chalk here. I'm okay with some Coors Field chalk. I think there's a couple of sneaky 5-mans, a couple of sneaky 3-mans that we can get to in our lineups that help. And then obviously the Jose Suarez piece is going to be big for me. But in terms of the AK range, no doubt about it. Cody Bradford has upside, but I'm not going to be doing it against Oakland here more than likely. What are you doing with Cody Bradford?
No real interest. I have Bradford. I've got 8 lineups out of my top 150 with Bradford. Like, it's not like I'm removing him from my player pool, but I'm underweight to him. I'm underweight to Eflin. And then same with Brasso. I have him in a couple of lineups. I'm underweight to all of these other guys. So it's just Gausman by default, and I don't like anybody else.
Yeah, we're on the exact same page.
All right, let's talk about the cheapies then. And we could group all of the sub 7K guys together. It's always hard to know, like, people in chat, do you actually like Richard Fitz, or do you just like to say Dick Fitz on the internet? So fun. I don't know, but I'm seeing lots of people talking about our guy Dick Fitz in here. He's $6,900, which surely has to be a troll by the pricing algorithm. Really gonna make the guy Dick Fitz $6,900? I'm calling bullshit on that. Somebody did some sort of manual manipulation to make that end up being the case. He's only 3% owned, though. The pitchers that are pulling any kind of ownership that are cheap, Jose Suarez is 21% owned. Edward Cabrera is 11% owned. Davis Martin is 13% owned. Just give me exposure to the pitchers that have the easiest matchups in this price range, and that is Jose Suarez and Davis Martin, with Suarez easily being the priority of the two.
Dick giving me fits. Let's go. No, it's
story of your life.
It's just whatever. Just what it is. I can't help it. Jordan had to fire up the lead in like he always does. Like, what do you actually do? What do you actually do here? Like, other than just
how do we move from a 2-shot to a 1-shot and then back and forth between us on the 1-shot? You need Jordan on the 1s and 2s, clicking buttons. Without Jordan, how do we know which Asian player is knocking a homer today? How would we know that without Jordan Klein?
It's very true.
It would be impossible to know otherwise. there would be no way for any of us to know that information.
I knew there was a reason that I wanted to do baseball shows for the 2 weeks. First off, because I'm an accountable human being, and I didn't know that I was going to be doing this and being gone for however long. But the other part is I love when Jordan Klein gets shit out, or shat on, or shited on. Shite, that is the word that they like to use over here. But I'm a big fan of that.
Eric doesn't mean that
Dick
figuratively
Fitz.
either. He means it literally.
Quite literally. That'd be hilarious. Now I'm imagining it. But as I look at Mr. Dick Fitz, I don't know really what to tell you. I mean, it's the funniest name ever. Somebody at DraftKings decided $6,900. That is a fantastic price for him. And now we have to try to, with a straight face, be able to tell you like what we should be looking at. The guy hasn't given up an earned run over 3 outings. I get it. But there is really no strikeout upside right now. And there's no reason that they should have him out there for 95, 100 pitches. So there's not going to be that kind of an upside. There's teams with things to play for. There's also pitchers that I think are better in terms of strikeout stuff. And I just don't find him to be somebody who's all that appealing there at that price tag. I prefer going way down to Jose Suarez. I also think Simeon Woods Richardson is sneaky in this spot. I think the Twins, obviously I'm in shambles, but watching this baseball team from afar, I can't even stomach the moronic. I mean, we knew this was coming yesterday with Bailey Ober. Like, we just knew. We talked ourselves in circles around it over and over and over, capped him at 40%. But Simeon Woods Richardson, 4 ERA, 1.25 whip, and everything across the board, it's just kind of meh. But it's such a good matchup against Miami. And you look at some of the stuff as terms of like the weather, 73 degrees, no real wind. If anything, it's blowing out slightly. But like, my God, how do you not fire up a little bit of him at absolutely low ownership? I don't know, 7.4% ownership. Yeah, he'll get a quick hook if he doesn't have it going, but like, this is like the team you would be firing up tons of him against, and I don't understand this ownership. So yeah, I've got 4 out of 20 lineups with him, 20%. If I were playing 150, I'm sure I would have right around that as well. I have 18% of my top 150. I like Simeon Woods Richardson as a pivot directly off of that. If you think Fitz or Basso are the guys you want to play, sure, go right ahead. I don't really like them. I think Woods Richardson is a little bit more of a known quantity. So yeah, that's the guy that I'm going to be firing up.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's certainly a good matchup. I worry a little bit about the strikeout upside, but he's so cheap that maybe it doesn't matter all that much. I get myself actually a little bit more exposure, though, to Edward Cabrera, who Edward Cabrera is not as safe as Simeon Woods Richardson, Eric, but I think he has a higher ceiling just because of his ability to generate strikeouts and then just whatever the hell is going on with your Minnesota Twins. But Edward Cabrera, 26% strikeout rate this year, 27% last year, 26% overall for his career. At his price point, it's one thing when you have Edward Cabrera who randomly ends up being chalky on some slates and then I don't have interest in him, but single digit owner, or I should say around 10% ownership on Edward Cabrera. I kind of prefer him more as a contrarian play than Simeon Woods Richardson just because of his strikeout profile.
Don't hate it either. I mean, I think Edward Cabrera, we've gone over this how many times with him this season. There are times that I've fired up a lot of Edward Cabrera, but there's no doubt against lefties, 204 expected ISO. There are a lot of bats waiting in the wings. I do like our lineup, the construction of it against right-handed pitching more. There's only one lefty in that bullpen. Maybe they'll utilize him against Larnach. Maybe they'll utilize him elsewhere. But with Edward Julian, I think he'll be fine and staying atop that lineup. I'm so sick of Manuel Margot pinch hitting. I swear to fucking God, if I see Manuel Margot pinch hit for us today, I'm going to lose my absolute mind. But overall, Edward Cabrera, 6.2K on DraftKings specifically, no problem trying to make that a thing.
Yeah, we got a super chat here from Chris Williams. I want to see something for the night slate because he asked us if Bradford and yeah, I thought this might have been the case. There's something very weird that doesn't typically happen. So usually the main slate has the same pricing as the night slate. Cody Bradford is $8,800 on the night slate, though. Actually, is that the same price he is?
Yeah.
For the,
DK Knight.
That is the same price he is for
Same
the main
price.
slate. So I guess there's another reason. Why Cody Bradford is $8,800 is fairly ridiculous to me. But all right, that aside, he asked us if the combination of Gallen and Bradford looks good for the night slate. I don't like Cody Bradford for any of the slates today. I would rather go to Jack Flaherty and just pay. Like the difference between Cody Bradford and Jack Flaherty is $800. Pay for Jack Flaherty. I'd rather play Dylan Cease as well at $9,300. I'd rather just take the $1,300 salary savings, go to Brady Basso and go to Brady Basso there. I don't want to play Cody Bradford meaningfully on any slate at $8,800.
Yeah, I think what happens is that this is the same thing that happens in NFL because, I mean, it happens all the time in NFL. MLB, people, if we had Blake Snell get shelled for an outing, he'd still be chalky coming in the next time because it's still Blake Snell. What's happening here, though, is that we've had some good outings from Cody Bradford. And I think the field is just recognizing that and playing him as if there aren't any warts to the portfolio. He's got a sub 20% K rate against lefties. It is up at 24.3% against righties. But we're talking about a guy who gives up fly ball hard contact. And he's got a 312 WOBA against lefties. 289 X WOBA against righties isn't like egregious by any means, but he's going to start giving up more power than what he has so far. And he has a 239 BABIP against them, 241 BABIP against lefties. That is not sustainable. I don't think he's the Jacob deGrom here where we're going to see a sub 240 BABIP going forward. And if that regresses back towards the 300 type number, Cody Bradford is going to get lit the F up sooner rather than later. I'm not jamming Oakland by any means, so it's not like I'm saying, oh, avoid Cody Bradford, but I just don't find him to be as intriguing of an option as what it appears the field does.
Yeah, especially on that night slate. I mean, you've got the same ownership, Basso, Bradford, Cease, Flaherty. They're all 32 to 38% owned. If there's some sort of massive ownership discrepancy, and let's say Bradford was 10% owned and these other guys were like 40%, that could potentially sway me, but not when they all have the same ownership. So here's what I think you should do, Chris. If you are trying to prioritize your pitching combinations for the night slate, I think Gallen and Flaherty is the way to go. If you can't make Flaherty fit, then just go cheaper and go to Basso. I think that should be your pitching combination. But for sure, stick with the Gallen side.
Yep. Love.
Anything else you want to talk about as far as the cheap pitchers go on DraftKings?
No, now that we have 8 games, it was a 9-game slate. Now that it's 8, I mean, we have some ways that you can get some leverage at pitching. I think we're going to see more consolidated ownership on Gallen than even what we have projected. I think we probably see it pretty spread out among some of the cheap guys. I mean, that kind of seems to be the sentiment, but just to close the loop on Jose Suarez, I mean, he's taking on the White Sox. Jose Suarez against the White Sox. He has one of the more interesting pitches and pitch mixes in baseball, and I think we're going to see him next year have a pretty decent chance at being a good starting pitcher in the big leagues. But today specifically, he's 6K. I know that there isn't anything for either of these teams to play for, but they are still trying to figure out what they got. And Jose Suarez has a 23.5% K rate on the season. He'll probably walk some guys. He'll probably give up some barrels. But if he's going to avoid barrels, you got to think that going up against these White Sox, that's going to be the thing that we probably see him be able to get by on. And if the strikeouts are there, I just feel the best about him at 6K because of the matchup.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are punting, and especially if you're somebody who's just building one lineup, I definitely think that the direction you want to be going to is Jose Suarez against the Chicago White Sox.
Just throw the sweeper more. Throw the sweeper. Throw it every time, Suarez.
Do you remember when the Orioles used to develop pitchers and they would do the thing where like they weren't allowed to throw their best pitches in the minor leagues? And do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Kevin Gausman.
And Jake Arrieta, another one.
Yeah. It was absolutely mind-blowing to me. It was so dumb. Oh, hey, let's work on the thing that you're not going to be using at the big league level the most. Great. Great idea, guys.
Yeah, Jake, and there was another thing too. They like didn't allow pitchers to throw splitters or something like that, which was Jake Arrieta's best pitch. So Jake Arrieta, because he wasn't allowed to throw a splitter, I think the Orioles thought at the time that it would lead to more injuries. They just wouldn't let him throw it. So instead, what happened is he couldn't throw his best pitch and he was just terrible. He gets traded to the Cubs and he's allowed to throw his best pitch and he becomes a Cy Young pitcher. It's like, all right, well, he didn't get hurt with your team, but he also was just terrible. Another super chat from Chris. He says, I was just worried about the matchup for Cease and Jack Flaherty. Totally understood. But to me, the difference in quality of the pitchers, that is more important to me than the quality of the matchup. So especially when Cody Bradford's $8,800, that is going to be a pass for me.
It's a no for me, dog.
Pitchers on FanDuel, Eric. If you're building one FanDuel lineup, what's the direction you want to go? We've got three pitchers, double-digit own. Gausman's $9K, Gallen's $9,800, and you got Jose Suarez $5,900 on FanDuel. Misprice for sure. He is 18% owned. Cash game lineup, which direction would you go at pitching? And then for a GPP, if you're building one lineup, which direction would you go with FanDuel pitching?
I think I'd go Jose Suarez for cash. I mean, 5,900 and just play Coors Field, play 8 bats. It should be pretty easy to do. I like Zac Gallen. I mean, I guess Zac Gallen would be your more sure thing, but God, 5,900 for Jose Suarez against the White Sox in Chicago. I mean, obviously that's a better ballpark to be pitching in than Angel Stadium. I got to think Jose Suarez 5,900 would be my guy.
It's tough for me in cash games choosing between Jose Suarez at $5,900 because relative to FanDuel pricing as of late, $9,800 is also a misprice on Zac Gallen. And I think Gallen might have a little bit more, well, I think for sure more of an established floor than Jose Suarez, but man, it's tough. It's tough. I'm going to say for cash games, I lean towards Gallen. For GPPs, Jose Suarez. But you can't really go wrong in either direction. I think both guys look great and should be more popular. I think both of them should be north of 20% owned over on FanDuel. And then it's hard for me to justify getting to any of the super low-owned pitchers because I think Suarez and Gallen are that much better looking than everybody else. They're not insanely popular or anything.
So back when I was playing like $500 or $1,000 a day in cash, like 2017 FanDuel, these are the kind of slates where I don't know if I've ever like talked about this, but I had no problem playing 2 cash game lineups on FanDuel. I know some people do it in NFL where it's like, oh, I don't want to have my slate made or broken by Patrick Mahomes, throwing 3 touchdowns or 0 touchdowns and handing it off to Pacheco the entire time. And, there are certain builds that are 2v2s and everybody kind of knows what they are, but you can kind of split exposure. I think this is a great slate that if you're confident in your process of FanDuel building cash, if you're confident that you have an edge in that direction as far as like picking out your batters and routinely winning, I think this is a good slate to split exposure between Jose Suarez and Zac Gallen because you're going to get probably 4 of the same bats. You're probably going to get 4 different bats, and I'd be okay kind of like splitting it around. I'd probably be playing some different head-to-heads with Suarez and Gallen, both a part of it. I'd probably play some different 50-50s or triple ups or things like that. I guess on FanDuel, I haven't looked how they run a lot of those recently, but back in the day, I had no problem splitting between Suarez and Gallen.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable as well. We don't talk about that very often or really ever. But yeah, I think that's a totally viable way to build it as well. I think they look equally good. Make 2 cash game lineups, one with Gallen, one with Jose Suarez, and then split your cash game exposure amongst those 2 for FanDuel purposes. And I think that's a pretty good way to go about it. So
Yep.
A good shout
It's
by
so
you.
close. I just ran it on the background to make sure I just wasn't talking shit. I have Suarez in 32% of my lineups. I have Gallen in 28%. So they're markedly the best two pitchers to get to. And because they're in such widely different price gaps, like this isn't like we're choosing between a 9,800 and a 9K pitcher. It's not like I'm choosing between Gallen or Gaussman. They're just two wildly different builds. And again, if you feel good about your process at identifying batters and you've routinely found a 2-3% expected ROI, or like a 2-3% ROI period on the year, I would love splitting exposure on today's slate.
Anything that you like that maybe I'm not seeing for a lower
No.
owned contrarian option of FanDuel pitching?
No, there's a part of me that sees Eric Fetty, but I'm probably not going to do it. I'm not doing it on DK. So I think FanDuel, it's weird how sometimes on FanDuel you're like, oh, but he's 3% there, he's 2% there. But really, it just comes down to like Suarez, Gallen, Gaussman for me. I do prefer Suarez, Gallen over the field by a pretty considerable margin based on my 150.
All right, so let's go ahead and start looking at offenses. Also, if you guys have lineups for Jordan Klein to throw into the single lineup sims, throw it into the YouTube chat. Jordan can plug some of those in. Or if you're a Discord customer, one of the, well, I should just say in our Discord, one of the benefits of being a Stochastic customer on any of our packages, you do get access to the Discord channel. You could sweat games with the community in there, or you could ask me questions over the course of the show. So if you're in Discord and you want Jordan to plug in one of your lineups for us to evaluate here, hit me up and we could go ahead and plug those in. But Eric, let's talk about offenses and the stacks here. And the most popular offense on the slate by a mile is the St. Louis Cardinals against Austin Gomber in Coors Field. We did recently have an ownership update where we now have the Cardinals nearly 20% owned. They are 18% owned on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, we now have them at 17.2% ownership. So this is the most popular team on both sites. What do you make of them relative to their ownership? For cash games, easy. Plug in the Cardinals. People in the Discord who are asking about cash games before, I mentioned at the top, say it again. One of the reasons to go to Jose Suarez as your SP2 on DraftKings, and then maybe even to be the guy you want him in for FanDuel, is to be able to get yourself more exposure to Coors Field because you're going to want it for cash games. What do you do with that really high ownership in GPPs, though?
Want to be way over. Jose Suarez, yeah, I want to be way over, and I want to be way over on Coors. I mean, what else do you want me to say? Like, we have St. Louis under-owned. We have Arizona appropriately owned. We have Colorado way under-owned on today's slate. Like, St. Louis and Colorado, getting access to them with Suarez, I think that's like the key to the day. Like, for me, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like cash games, GPPs, doesn't matter what it is. That is the path that I'm taking. I think it's the path that makes the most sense based on our projections.
Yeah, I like St. Louis. It's the team I get the most exposure to, but I'm not that much different in the field. I have 20% exposure to the Cardinals as a stack. It's a shit ton. It's the most I have of any team. It's just not that much different in the field because the ownership is so high. It's like I said, cash games go there. GPPs, I think the ownership is about appropriate, but it's hard for me to get like way higher than the Cardinals unless I was going to plug them into like 40 or 50% of my lineups or anything like that. Outside of the Cardinals, because I think it's a pretty obvious spot for us to be targeting, what are the other offenses that look like priorities to you?
Oh, God. San Francisco is a priority for me. Nobody's playing them against Zac Gallen. Zac Gallen's going to be really popular. This is now an 8-game slate, and it's a good ballpark to a certain extent for them as far as doubles, triples, playing up for that. A lot of room out there at Chase Field. And Zac Gallen, I mean, he's the chalk on this slate for a reason. I mean, I think he's the best, most underpriced pitcher, best point per dollar pitcher, but he gives up some hard contact, and he is definitely a guy that I think can run into some bats from time to time. 250 expected batting average, 40.7% hard hit. I love the leverage that you're getting there. I didn't love it as much yesterday against Bailey Ober. I mean, normally I love to stack against Bailey Ober. I had one stack of 20 with Miami, and it just even wasn't something that I liked all that much. I almost took it out, but at the end of the day, I'd be okay rolling out 3-4 lineups in 20 max going up against Mr. Zac Gallen here in this spot. He's the most popular pitcher on the slate. I know that that's kind of a redundant statement at this point. Like, oh, it makes sense every slate to stack against the most popular pitcher. But like, I think it has more validity today than it does most slates, because most slates, the pitcher who's 30, 40% owned is really, really good. And Zac Gallen is good. I love him, but he definitely has a pronounced downside in a spot like this.
I think Jose Suarez, like just looking through some of the ownership projections and the Coors Field spot, I think Jose Suarez is probably going to be a little bit more popular than what our ownership projection is. I really like getting to the White Sox as a leverage stack today. It is going to put you on such a different build than the field, because what the field is going to do is going to be Jose Suarez, maybe Jack Flaherty, Zac Gallen, potentially Kevin Gausman, and then just play Coors Field, the Cardinal side. If you stack against Jose Suarez, who has upside, but like on the whole has not been very good this year, he's got a 6.08 ERA and a 5.01 expected ERA. You could get yourself in a situation where you're getting leverage off of Suarez, who I think is going to be super popular. I actually wouldn't even be stunned if he ends up being more popular than Zac Gallen today. And then you're also going to get yourself on 2 pay-up pitchers and you got unlimited salary to spend if you're stacking the White Sox against them. There are not very many spots I think the White Sox have upside. This is one of them, though, against Jose Suarez.
I don't hate that shout out at all. I mean, that is quite the statement to have him be more popular than everybody else. There are some reasons that I don't completely disagree with you. One, anytime anybody sees the White Sox on a slate, yeah, you're going to have interest in the pitcher on the other side, especially if they have a 23.5% K rate, even if they do have a 6.09 ERA, 1.63 whip. But yeah, there's still a 6 ERA, 1.49 whip to consider there. Sorry, 1.63 whip for Jose Suarez. Like, he's bad. Stack up pitchers against bad pitchers that are going to be chalky. I mean, that's been the name of the game for you and I all MLB season. I'm ever so slightly positive here. I'm still kind of waiting on that massive score, which I think is going to have to wait for the playoffs. But like, I still feel really, really good about the process. And the Sims tool has me getting to a little bit of it as well. So I think the White Sox are a good shout out.
Yeah. So if we're talking about a leverage stack, that's the direction I like to go. Whose lineup is this one, Jordan's? Okay. So Jason's lineup looks pretty good. We've got a question from Sniffs1234 that asks, how do we feel about Basso? He says projections have him high. His innings are all over the place. I don't really like Basso that much for today. I think he just lands in some lineups. We were talking about it at the top because he's $7,500 on DraftKings. No other pitchers in the 7K range. So I could see why, especially if you're hand building a lineup and has like $7,800, $7,900 left or 76, 75. Like Basso just kind of becomes the default answer. But other than that, like I don't want to go out of my way to be targeting him. I don't like him very much.
I don't like him very much either.
Oh, okay, cool. I was going to ask Jordan if you saw the lineup from K Sizzle. So yeah, plug in K Sizzle's lineup. This is Gallen, Suarez. Also, K Sizzle says this is a lineup you're playing for GPP and cash. Don't do that. They're totally different game sets. You should not be making lineups that you're trying to build for both. Now, with that said, the lineup that K Sizzle is playing, I don't have an issue with it for cash because it's Gallen, it's Suarez, and then it's a 5-man Cardinal stack, and then there's 3 Angels on the other side. I think the Angels are a reasonable team to stack as well. I don't know that I'd want a 3-man Angel stack in a cash game lineup. For GPPs, I don't have an issue with it. So just something else to keep in mind. Don't play, in general, the same lineup for cash as well as for GPPs. But looking back at the other offenses on the slate, Eric, where do you stand on the Angels? Because that is a team that I like in GPPs as well for salary savings.
Yeah, it's Davis Martin on the other side. I have no problem anytime anybody wants to stack up against Davis Martin. You also get the worst bullpen in baseball directly behind him. Since the All-Star break, they've been absolutely abhorrent, egregious in every sense of the word. You have unbelievable opportunity just getting to a guy in Davis Martin who carries a 312 WOBA to lefties, carries a 323 WOBA to righties, and then the entire back gamut of that bullpen. I mean, there are definitely chances with these Angels, and I've said this how many times on shows. Ward, Neto, these guys are having unbelievable years. Logan O'Hoppe, one of the better hitting catchers, 3.6K. I have no problem. I think the one hard thing about the Angels today is Matt Tice is in there, 2.7K. Can't play him and O'Hoppe together unless you're on FanDuel. Nolan Schanuel, don't really want to be playing him at first base when you have guys that up and down the entire board, Paul Goldschmidt in Coors, Toglia at Coors Field, who's Christian Walker for Arizona. There's so like the opportunity cost of first base to play a slap hitting lefty who, is routinely plus 800 to hit homers. Like, I don't love playing him in the 3 hole. And that leaves me with Kevin Pillar, playing him at cleanup. Like, it's just not a fun stack to be putting together. I like the Angels a lot more with like the Ward Neto O'Hop combination, or Matt Tice maybe for salary savings, and just getting to them as 3-mans, 2-mans, not necessarily playing them as 5-mans, but there's no doubt that there's some viability. It's just hard to stack up on DraftKings because of positionality.
Yeah, so for me, Cardinals overall top priority stack. I think the best value stack is the Angels, and I think the best leverage stack, Chicago White Sox going up against Jose Suarez. Are there any teams you like for really low ownership or for leverage in the same way that I like the White Sox? I knew you brought up the Giants.
Yep.
I don't think you're prioritizing them. Maybe you just have a couple lineups with them, but any other priorities for you as far as stacks go?
The Giants are the lowest owned team on the slate, and I don't think they should be. I think they're a better play than Oakland. I think they're a better play than Miami. I think they're a better play than San Diego. I think they're a better play than Texas. I think they're a better play than Baltimore. I think they're a better play than Boston. I mean, I think they're a better play than a lot of teams that are pulling way, way, way more ownership than they are. So I will argue that San Francisco still the one for leverage. You might as well just go to the top pitcher who gives up hard hit. And I love Zac Gallen as a pitcher. This guy has made me more money than anybody over the years. But from a betting perspective, from a DFS perspective, I can't really look at the past and let it affect my future. And I look at today and I see a 40% potential in small field tournaments for Zac Gallen, 35% here in large field tournaments. I got to stack against that every time if the guy's got north of a 40% hard hit, not getting as much swing and misses at what he has in the past. And yeah, there's definitely some ammunition on the San Francisco side.
Let's see. Do I have any Giants stack? A couple of them. Nothing really all that significant. But yeah, my ownership mostly concentrated on the Cardinals, the White Sox, the Angels. My next most rostered team, although I'm not really all that much different in the field, is I have 8% of your Minnesota Twins.
Yeah.
Eric, this team has been no good, very bad, terrible, miserable, below expectations. Their fans are stupid. Some of them are ugly as well. What are you going to be doing with your Minnesota Twins today? The next most popular team on the slate.
I have 0 of them.
Pinch hit risk is still a concern, for sure.
Sure is. But there's only one lefty in the pen. That makes me feel a little bit better that we continue to see all the lefties out there. Plus, we don't have Matt Wallner in that lineup. Ends up being Larnach. He's the only one out there. I mean, what you probably see in some way, shape, or form is like, I don't know, you probably see, I mean, we have everybody on the IL. So it's probably, if anything, Manuel Margot comes in to pinch hit for no reason whatsoever against a lefty. Probably would pinch hit for Larnach. The pinch hit risk is not as high today going up against one lefty potentially in the Miami pen, whereas yesterday they faced off against a lefty and then they had a lefty waiting in the pen, which just made it a little bit different.
I've got some of them, but like I said, I've got 8% that's with the field that as well. Just thought they were notable because one, I wanted to troll you, but number two, they actually are kind of popular as well.
You wanted
so I
to
thought they were worth
mainly
discussing. They were a big talking point yesterday. Jake Lindland left us a super chat. It is a 2v2 question. He wants to know Jose Suarez and Ketel Marte or Zac Gallen and Sagisi. I forget how his name is pronounced, the second baseman for the Cardinals today. I would go with the Gallen combination. You're getting access to a cheap bat in Coors Field, and you're getting a much better pitcher in Gallen. So as much as I like Suarez today, yeah, I prefer the Gallen side. How about for yourself?
I prefer the Gallen side, yeah. But again, I've made my San Francisco stuff known too.
Any other thoughts you have on offenses or anything else we haven't talked about yet?
It's an 8-game slate. I think we've talked about the spots we should be prominent on. We've talked about the pitching as well. I mean, this is going to always be kind of a quick show. So I had no qualms about playing Jose Suarez. I guess FanDuel, that feels like the sharpest thing that we brought up in a while, where it's like, it's okay to split exposure if you're going to have 2 wildly different builds, as long as your process lands you on the same amount of plays or the same, style of plays. Don't utilize the Sims tool when building out, a cash game lineup. The Sims tool is so unbelievably valuable when you're trying to consolidate your top 20, top 150 lineups. That's what I'm doing today on DK. Works as well for FanDuel, but yeah, don't be utilizing. Somebody's brought up Sims tool or asked me something about that in my Discord the other day. don't be utilizing that for cash games.
Yeah, I've gone over everything that's important to myself. So with that in mind, if you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is time for some dong picks. So Jordan, get ready because you have the most important part of the show coming up in a little bit. But first, Eric, let me know, who are you picking to go yard today? And if you guys want to play along in chat, picking Coors Field, it is cheating. Eric, who's your home run call?
I guess I've kind of backed myself into a corner here. Zac Gallen is pretty good at avoiding, some of the power. 138 expected ISO to lefties, 150 expected ISO to righties. So I'm probably not going to go crazy with it, but he's in 4 of my 20 lineups. So Mike Yastrzemski, 194 expected ISO. Yeah, he might strike out a lot, but the guy, he lofts it up in the air. 19-degree launch angle against righties, 18 homers now on the season. Incredible stuff since he's been inserted into the leadoff position for the Giants. You want massive leverage. If there's one guy to get massive leverage with, it's got to be Yastrzemski there at the top of that lineup. At an outfield position where, there's 3 spots that you're filling up. Happy to be firing him up as a one-off 2-man in a couple of these. So Mike Yastrzemski in non-Gallen lineups, my homer of the day.
Only 2 times this year, 2 times I can remember anyway, have I picked a White Sox player as my dong of the day. One time it was Andrew Vaughn, and he homered. The other time it was Luis Robert, who homered twice. And you know what? We've got Luis Robert. He is single-digit owned because nobody on the White Sox is popular today. You're getting leverage off of Jose Suarez, who's a lefty. Luis Robert, I'm going with him as my home run pick, trying to, I swear, if this works out, I will not pick another White Sox player to homer this year because, well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's only 2 regular seasons
that are viable.
The White Sox, I don't believe, are going to be playing in the playoffs. Tomorrow, I'm doing the Thursday Night Football show, and then Friday, I just won't pick a White Sox player to homer. So this is going to be the last time this year that I pick a White Sox player as the dong of the day. Trying to go undefeated for the year with White Sox home run picks. Luis Robert, that is going to be my pick. Let's see what we have from chat now, and it starts with Steve McGee going Royce Lewis. Nicholas Barrett has got Corbin Carroll. Brendan Furlow is going with Norby. We have got Nathan Lukes from Michael Pavlik. Tristan Cassis from Steven Leibowitz. We've got Wilyer Abreu from Caleb Garink. Gunnar Henderson from Blake Moore. We've got Shea Langoliers and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Each hit 2 homers today from Mark. This is like the most aggressive home run call I think we've ever seen. Somebody picking 2 different double dong days. Greg Kell is going with Brent Rooker for 2 homers. Vladdy as well from Father Time. Juan Soto from Michael Swarek. We've got Taylor Ward from BX44. I feel like BX44 has picked Taylor Ward like 15 times.
He sure has.
Ken Ratty says that he went with Bregman and got it right yesterday. He's going with Brent Rooker today. We've got Corbin Carroll from Chris Williams, Shohei Ohtani from Donnie Boone. We've got, this is a little bit too much. Marquee Music Group is picking 4 homers from Taylor Ward today. Double homer day from Ohtani, according to Patrick Maduke. I didn't do that name correctly. Keith Vape has got Michael Conforto, and that is going to do it for us, but not before Jordan tells us who his homer of the day is. Jordan, who's going yard?
Corbin Carroll, dong.
All right, Corbin Carroll is the pick from Jordan. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Underdog for sponsoring the show. And don't forget, if you want to sign up for any of the packages for any of the sports we have here at Stokastic, link is down below in the YouTube description box. So thank you guys very much for watching. Good luck, and see you back here tomorrow.